with the next episode of commit.js. Harry is currently doing something somewhere, and he's very noisy. I'm not sure if I can mute him. Yeah, I can. He's doing some stuff, and I kind of don't like the noise. So, what are we going to be doing today? We're going to be exploring TypeScript and just other stuff around TypeScript. And yeah, maybe I should just share my screen. Let's see where we left off. So last time, what we did is we used lit.html to create this very simple application. We have this template that we're rendering here, and we had this button. No, actually, we had a few stuff. We had this input where we can actually add to-dos, and whenever we click on them, we can complete them or just incomplete them. And we also had this button where we are clicking and this value is changing. Actually, this thing, I added it a bit later after we finished the stream. I just wanted it to be working, so it's on the GitHub page. But anyways, let's see how we made this work. So what we did is we kind of created this function called useState that takes one default value, and it pretty much returns a few stuff. The first thing that it returns is just a function that we can get the actual current value. The other one is the directive that we are using inside our lit.html template. And the other one is the setter function that actually sets the value and commit the changes. And why did we do this? Just because we didn't want to be re-rendering the whole template and just manipulating a single part of the DOM. And we're just using it here, where we are just using the directive that creates this comment tag. And by clicking this button, we're just directly manipulating this part that is from the directive and just changing the value. And pretty much this is all. Anything you guys want to add? No? You guys are muted, by the way, but anyway.
Yeah. So for right now, nothing yet.
Okay. We're just still waking up because last night we had our company party and there were a bunch of tequilas.
A bunch.
One question, what are you going to do today? Because I skipped like 30 seconds from the stream because my internet connection is not the best, but did you set what we are going to do today, or?
Yeah, I did, but yeah. So again, what we are going to be doing today is integrating TypeScript into our project, and we're going to be talking about TypeScript related stuff. We're going to construct a few decorators so we can make our application easier to develop web components and stuff like that. So, and I hope that we are going to have time to mention reflect metadata, which is a library that we can use with TypeScript and the TypeScript decorators to just be getting like some metadata about the things that we apply the decorators on. So we'll see how much time we're going to have, but yeah, this is it. Okay, so let's start by integrating TypeScript into our project. So what we have to do is because we already created a webpack config and we have webpack running. So what we have to do now is kind of start writing TypeScript files and just be compiling them to normal JavaScript files. So the first thing that we will do is just install the TypeScript loader that we're going to be using for our transpilation. And of course, we're going to have to install TypeScript and the TypeScript compiler. So maybe just a few words about TypeScript before we start. What is TypeScript? So TypeScript is a superset of JavaScript, meaning that it runs on top of JavaScript and it allows you to have types for your variables, and it also gives you auto-completion and gives you a bunch of stuff that's it's still not supported in JavaScript, like decorators. It also has interfaces and pretty much everything that you can find in a static or just a typed language. And here are all the types and stuff. The really important thing to note here is that all these types are only while you're developing, and after the compilation to JavaScript, this is there are no checks to see if the value passed to a current variable, it's a Boolean or is a string. I mean, it's just regular JavaScript. So you're using these annotations, so it's they can help you just while you're developing your application. And today you're going to see like the benefits of this, just because currently, like last time, if you haven't watched the previous episodes, go check it. But we were kind of struggling to know what is returned and what is the type of the thing that it's returned and stuff like that. And yeah, from now on, hopefully we won't have any problems.
But either way, if I get you right, so TypeScript is giving me all this out completion and stuff. But if I want to go like full command mode, I can use TypeScript without any types and write my JavaScript, right?
Yeah, so TypeScript is a superset over JavaScript, and it's not necessary for you to write TypeScript. I mean, you can write JavaScript and it's valid, but of course you can always like use the annotations and all the features that TypeScript gives you, so you can write even better code. And what it really helps is when, for example, you have a larger team, and not everyone knows what you've written and what the API of the thing that you've written is. So it's really helpful just to type the, for example, function and to know what argument it accepts, and just know all the different interfaces. And especially if you're having a large project and new people are coming, it's just super helpful. I just gave like an example. If you're not using TypeScript, you can think of like if you played Age of Empires, you know, you have to start walking around the map to discover how it really looks. So JavaScript project without TypeScript is like you playing, what was it, Age of Empires without cheats. Okay, so let's start.
I just wanted to like elaborate on that, because what people are like, what's TypeScript? Like, it's the very scary thing that's not JavaScript. And actually, no, like it's percent what you said. So
it's a really powerful tool. It's essential, in my opinion. It's just essential. It's for.
I agree. I mean, it's really powerful, but it's really, you can lose a lot of time doing stuff like trying to do something that it seems very simple. Sometimes you might lose a lot of time just trying to create this very complex type for a certain feature that you have in your application. And you start wondering, okay, is it worth it, like spending so much time like just developing this feature, or I should just leave it and just continue? So you have like, I mean, it's always like plus and minuses, you know, pros and cons. So you cannot always benefit. You have to just write more code with the TypeScript, but I think it's very useful. It's the same thing with automation. I mean, I can compare it with automation, because whenever you're automating a process, and at a certain point, if it's taking a lot of time, you're like, okay, should I just create it and I don't care, or should I just automate the whole thing? So whenever I have to do it, I just click one command and it runs. So, I mean, I don't know. It's very complex to say if it's.
It has pros and cons.
Yeah, but it's interesting.
Yeah, that it is.
So we're not going to observe all of the types. I mean, it's not going to be a course about TypeScript. It will just start playing around, and yeah, let's start doing this. So since we're working with Webpack, we're going to need the TS loader, and this is the loader that whenever you import TypeScript files, it's going to compile them. So let's start by doing this. So let's add it to our project. I actually copied the repo from the previous time and just created a new one named commit.js. And it's going to be on GitHub a little bit later. So let's add the TS loader, and I'm also going to add TypeScript. And I'm going to add, do we need something else actually? TypeScript. I think this is all that we need for now.
Okay.
Okay. Perfect. So let's see how we can integrate it. So let's first go into node modules. Here inside the node modules, if we go to .bin, you're going to see the TypeScript compiler, which is this one, the TSC, and this is the one that we're going to be using. So there is like a really useful command called npx that allows you to run scripts from executables from this directory. So I'm just going to do npx tsc -- init. So it can init. So it can construct this tsconfig JSON file. Let's quickly examine what that is. What is this? This is not something that, yeah, this is like some old stuff. Okay, this is the tsconfig file. Pretty much this is a JSON file, as you see, with a bunch of configurations. These configurations are going to be read by the TypeScript compiler. Usually you can pass these configurations every time you're running the tsc command. And but yeah, I mean, it's not very convenient, so it's better to have this file called the tsconfig, and you just here you keep all of the configurations that you want to have for your project. And whenever you run the tsc command, it automatically searches for this tsconfig JSON. It gets these compiler options and it applies them to the code. So yeah, I think this looks pretty okay. So the other
question, do I need the webpack if I have the whole TypeScript configuration and stuff? And I think that it goes like with a nice build process and stuff. I mean, why do I need the webpack?
So we need the webpack because we're developing a web application, and TypeScript is really good at compiling TypeScript files, but sometimes, like in the future, we'll need to be adding external libraries and just be able to create different types of bundles. And for example, whenever we're using something from node modules, we don't want it to get transpiled with the TypeScript compiler, just because, I mean, it's not necessary, and sometimes it breaks stuff. So we have to have two separate processes. I mean, one process is going to be the webpack that runs the TypeScript compiler, and the TypeScript compiler only on TypeScript files and not any other files. So we don't want to break them. Yeah, I hope that this answers your question. But there are a lot of benefits from Webpack. I mean, this is one of the things, and in future we're going to be creating custom loaders probably, and just have a way to create different environment variables for our project. It's very useful. Maybe we're going to be doing an episode about testing, maybe web components. Why not? I mean, yeah, it's going to be interesting. And usually, like when we're testing web components, this here it's a big issue. So whenever we have like a closed root, we cannot access it. And I think that if we want to be creating tests, the best way is to have environment variables that we can apply in our code. And whenever we are in the testing environment, we provide to all of our components to be opened instead of closed and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, there are tons of benefits. Webpack is super powerful, so I really like it. So let's see how we can integrate the TS loader. So it should be very simple. So first, we're going to be adding this stuff. Sorry. So what we do here is we say that we want for these extensions to be automatically resolved. That means that whenever we're writing an import statement, we don't want to be actually, we don't need this TSX. Who writes TypeScript with JSX? Come on. I'm just joking, of course. Yeah, so we don't want to be adding these extensions to our files. And the other thing that we're saying here is that whenever we have a set of rules, and these rules are saying that all the files that are ending with the TypeScript or TSX, I'm just going to remove this because we're not going to be having TSX files. We want to pass them to the TS loader that is going to compile them with this TypeScript configuration that we currently have. Okay, so let's see. There are a few other things that we actually need to change, I think. Yeah, here in the TypeScript compiler, first we have to change this to TypeScript, and here in the TypeScript compiler we have to Let me just, no, I think that we're fine for now. We don't have to be putting anything extra here. So let's see what's going to happen. Let me change this to TypeScript.
Probably you should, let's say, set allow.js flag to true inside the tsconfig if you're not changing the name of the index file. But yeah, whatever, you change the name, so it's already TypeScript.
Yeah. I'm going to change it. I mean, after all, we want to be writing TypeScript, so why not? Okay, so let's start here. As you see, we have a bunch of errors, just because TypeScript is using this flag that says strict true, and pretty much it's pretty strict with all the code that we're writing. So what we want to be doing is starting to put annotations on our stuff. So let's start with this one here, the use state. This is the similarity to a React hook that we created last time. So what we're going to be doing here is we're going to be using a generic, just because whenever we have a value and we're using set state, it might be a string, it might be another value like a number, Boolean, so we don't know what this should be. And this is usually done with generics. And the people who are using static languages, they should know what generics are. I mean, they're used everywhere there. So we're going to say that we don't know what that value is, and that value should be discovered whenever we're using the function. And here we're going to say this is going to be, again, this type of value. And yeah, now we have to deal with the other stuff that we have here. So the best thing is that lit.html is written in TypeScript, so we don't have to worry about installing additional TypeScript definition files about lit.html. So here we should be able to do something like node part, and just say that this thing is going to be a node part, like that. And here as well, we're going to say node part, like that. And everything looks good here. I'm just going to make a few changes really quickly because I really don't like the interface of this thing. So let's do something like this. We're going to return an object, and this object is going to have a getter for value. And the getter for the value is actually going to be just returning the value. And yeah, let's move this a little bit like that and just comment it out because we don't want it to be annoying us. Then we're going to create a setter for the value, and it's going to be getting the new value. And just setting it to value equals new value. By the way, this value here is coming from up here. Yeah, so just in case you're wondering where it's coming from. And we're going to also have a directive, and this directive is going to be this part here that we're using. I think that this is going to be a much better API than what we currently have.
Yeah, you're missing one bracket.
Yeah. Okay. I think that it's much better. Okay. We are done here. So let's continue moving down. We have to say that it's node part here as well. Okay, everything's perfect here. Here we have a context. Usually, whenever you don't have an annotation, it says that it has implicit any. And just because of the strict checks, we have to give it a type here. So what is going to be actually the type here actually is going to be our app root. This is the component that we're going to be passing. So let's say app root. And now we have to fix our app root so we can get these errors here just disappear. So let's see what we currently have. We have title input value that is why is it using this? I think I've done a mistake. It should be like that, with an underscore in front. So first we have to define this thing. How do we define it? We have to say that it's going to be, I'm still sleeping, just doing strange stuff. So we're going to have this underscore title value that is going to be a string. And just because we're not going to be initializing any value here on top, we have to provide this exclamation mark there, just because TypeScript is very strict about stuff. And we're also going to have an update function, but since TypeScript doesn't know that we're going to have this function, we have to define it here as well. And we're going to say that the update function, what does it take any arguments? No. So it's just a function that gets no arguments and returns nothing. And that's why we put void there. And here we're going to be using to-dos. So let's create our first interface. I'm going to say interface I-to-do, and we're going to have a title that is going to be a string, and completed that is going to be a Boolean. And I'm going to say that the toggle to-do is going to be getting this thing. And yeah, here's a little bit more complex because we have this input key up handler. And here, either like we can have a target, but TypeScript cannot determine what kind of target do we have. Is it like an input element? Is it a text area? Is it like just a normal div? And not every HTML element has a value, so we have to remove this destructuring and just create it a little bit simpler. So we're going to say that I'm actually going to get the event, and I'm going to say that this is going to be a keyboard event. And here I'm going to say target equals event.target. And here I'm going to say that the target is actually going to be an HTML input element. And now I can just say here target.value. And this is really super useful because as you saw, we can actually see all the different things that an HTML input element has. So it's very useful. And again, we have to define that we're going to be having to-dos. So by the way, because I see that we're doing certain stuff here. Anyways, let's say that we're going to have to-dos, and to-dos is going to be from I-to-do array. And yeah, just mention it here. So TypeScript knows that we're going to have it. And here, what we have to do is we have to say that we're going to have a number, but this number is going to have a is going to have this type of this function here. So let's create an interface for that as well. Sadly, we cannot just use the type of operator that comes from TypeScript and pass it the function, because this function is using a generic. So we have to just create a generic interface for the return type of this use state. So let's say that we're going to have an interface, I use state. You don't have to put I in front of your interfaces, but this is like a convention that I like keeping just because I know what is an interface and what is not. And here we're going to say that we're going to actually return a value. And this value is going to be a generic. So here I'm going to say T. And the next thing that I'm going to be returning is the directive, this thing here, that is going to be, let's see what it is actually. And we're going to get it from this thing here, like, okay. And let's say that actually this function here is going to be returning this with the T. So yeah, we see that everything is perfect. So let's use this interface here, and we're going to say that we're going to have this number. And this number is going to be with type IUState from number. And everything should be fine. What? Number is nice and that's okay. So we have to put this thing here. But actually, what we could do is actually remove this from here and remove this whole part and just instantiate it right here. So we could just remove this part and just say number is going to be this. No, it's going to be this.
Yeah.
And it will automatically discover the type. So, I mean, we didn't have to actually do the whole interface part. So, I mean, but it's still good to have it. Okay, and we can remove this here as well, I think. This means that we can put it right here. That's going to be an empty array. What else? Let's see. Oh yeah, let's change this stuff. So we're going to have here input number value equals context number dot value plus 1. So let's see if it's going to, oops, I did something. +1 like that. Okay, so let's see if this is going to start working. Yeah, let's see where we are. Let me just think of. Okay, let's start yarn surf to see what's going to happen. Oops. Oh, we are actually serving already.
Cool.
Okay, so we have an error, can't resolve index.js just because here in the
Let's see what index.js there. Yeah.
DS, yep. Let's see what's going to happen now. Okay, and it looks like we created this main bundle, and this is our TypeScript compiled to JavaScript. And let's try to run it inside the browser. And we have some errors. Let's see what's going on. Okay, so we have this really interesting error here. It says that failed to construct HTML element, please use the new operator. So where is this actually coming from? It's actually coming from here, because we're saying that we are going to have a target ECMAScript 5. And the problem is that ECMAScript 5 does not have classes. So all the classes that we're writing are transpiled back to functions. And this is something that we either have to change here to ECMAScript 6 and just rerun the whole thing, or we have to install the additional polyfills that we can use with, so we can use web components with older types of browsers. And here we have the same mistake that I made before. But anyways, let's see if the to-dos are working. The to-dos are working fine. We can, change them. Now we have to get rid of this thing. This is just because we have to use the directive, not the. I'm actually using the directive.
Using the directive. That's strange. We have to run it. No. It's in.
Why is it this thing? Number directive, number value. It should be correct. It's very strange why it's not working. Maybe I'm not setting the value correctly. Looks like everything's fine. Let's debug it really quick. Okay, let's go to, the thing is that we, inside the index, we can actually, inside the index.ts, we see the things like that. So we have to, if we want to be debugging in TypeScript, we have to do a few additional things. So first thing first, we have to go here and say that we want to use source maps. And the other thing that's here, we have to say dev2s source maps. Source map for source maps. I don't know. Let's see if this is going to change stuff for us. So it's easier to, something like that. Source map or source maps. What is it?
Maps, maybe, no. Strange.
Oh, wait. Invalid configuration object. Dev2. Did I say dev2s? Oh, okay. I think it's source map actually. Let's see. Yeah, okay. And let's see what the problem is. Now, if we go to index.ts, it should be our TypeScript. So perfect. We have the source maps in place. Okay, let's see quickly what we're getting here. We have the directive, not part. Let's see what's happening. Okay, let's go to our constructor. Actually, it's on the bottom. Okay, false update and stuff. Okay. Let's say this dot number. Number has only directive. Directive is correct. The value is correct. So what is the problem then? Okay, let's go here. What is the this? This, okay, this dot number. It's okay, the directive and the value. Okay, everything looks okay. And now if we go here inside the context, what are we going to be having? Context number directive. So it's a function. Why is it compiling it to
Wasn't it invoking
string? Why? Yeah, this is a really good question. It should be invoking
it's returning it as a string because we're providing a function and we're trying to display it as a text element. So that's expected. But why exactly isn't it getting invoked? It is in the IIF in immediately invoked function expression. So
it is getting invoked. I mean, but this part is going to get returned. For me, the interesting part here is that this should be, because since it's a directive, it should be. Should we call it? No, I don't think we have to call it. Let's see on the HTML directives. I think that it should be like that. API directives somewhere, or maybe just search for. No, it's in the guide. Templates, writing templates.
It's not here. Creating
directives. Okay, fancy directives, some text. This is the thing, but we're executing it, and this is. Should we? I don't think that we should call it, because I'm already calling it up there, and it should be working straight away. That's super strange. I don't know.
We could try calling it, but I don't know. That's strange. Maybe it's not working properly as a directive.
Okay, let's try calling it. I don't think that it should be working. No,
it's not.
It says that it's not.
Maybe no. Are we using the lit.html directive? The directive from lit.html?
Yep.
Yeah, but to do complete.
Oh, wait.
We're not
we have to. Yeah. Okay.
We're just providing a directive.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. I was like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah, that was working.
Okay. Now now it's being called. Okay. Thanks, Alex. You saved the day. So yeah, oops, it's not being changed though. That's interesting. Let's see where we're missing something. Whenever we click, we have to do something. So where is our click handler? Oh no, we didn't have a click handler to do. Where is it? It's right here. It says context number value equals context plus 1. Can I? No, I cannot put a breakpoint there. It's stupid. So it's not invoking the setter. Let's see why. I'm just going to do like that. Oops, not this one. It's up here. No, I should wrap the whole function on this part. Yeah. Okay. What? You have to return something?
Complaining. I think that you need to add another. Yeah.
Okay, let's see what's happening.
Wait. The HTML elements are broken because it started the button in the UL under the actual function because it interpreted it as a code. It has return it like it was. Yeah.
That's what I want to do. Just quickly do it. Okay, so let's see what's going to happen inside the TS, inside the set value. Oh, wait, I'm just updating the value here. That's the problem. We actually have to commit the change as well. So we actually have to do this part here, set value, right?
Set value, yeah.
Yeah.
No, actually, we should just call set value because it's not needed in the whole thing.
I think that we have to change. Yeah, exactly. Okay.
But I think just another minor error. You said you're calling set value with value instead of new value.
Okay, perfect. Everything's working perfect. So we just, I guess, integrated TypeScript into our project. This is cool. Everything's working fine. So one other thing that probably is going to be useful is to see how we can actually transpile back to ECMAScript 5 and be able to be using these web components there, because I think that I mean, a lot of people would like to be able to how should I say it? Use it with all kinds of browsers and stuff. So let's install the web components polyfill that we're going to be using. And one other thing, just before I install it, I don't want to forget to say exclude and something like not modules. I think this is how it was done. And okay, let's go and just quickly install it. We're going to say yarn adds web components, and it's going to be like web components.js. Okay. Okay, perfect. And one last thing is for us to just come here in the index.html and say import, and just say that we want to import the script and web components. And what we need here is the custom elements. Oops. Why is it like that though? That's pretty strange. Let's see what we have installed. Web components. This is what I need. I'm not sure why it's not reading it correctly. Okay, .js maybe. Let's see what's going to happen. We're serving our file. Okay, and everything is working. Okay, perfect. And yeah, currently I changed it to ECMAScript. Oh no, I haven't changed it. Let's see. I thought that I've changed it. Maybe
Changed it.
Okay, let's see. Yeah, everything's working fine. So our web components currently are using ECMAScript 5. So they're transpiled to functions instead of classes. Okay. So what's next, guys? We have to. Do you have any like suggestions what to do? What I'm thinking to do next is instead of writing this whole thing with the HTML element and with the custom elements defined, just to extract it to a decorator called component, and just provide to this decorator some configuration options that we can use, so it automatically creates this stuff.
That sounds great.
Do you have any comments, Harry?
Yeah, that's why I put my mic in. So I think it's probably a good idea to just like walk around this TS config file, because there are a lot of useful flags, just to know, like, for the people to know what they can actually do. So, for example, if we go to this config file, we have the allow.js thing, which is somewhere above.
There it is.
And for example, I mean, if you're like super hyped from this commit.js episode and you're like, I want to use TypeScript, but let's say you have a legacy project with like thousands of files of JavaScript. If you like opt in this flag, you can start writing TypeScript and just include wherever you like JavaScript files, which is pretty amazing, because you can like just migrate in one line and you are starting using TypeScript without writing your application again. And there are a lot of kind of the same flags around this compiler options, which are giving you a lot of power to do stuff. And yeah, probably if you're like some amazing flags that are inside the configuration, you can share it with us.
Okay, so a few flags. I mean, of course, what I like about the TSC init is that it gives you all these comments here, so it's very easy for you to know like what this flag is for and stuff like that. But I think the most useful flags are this one that is called lib. This is whenever you want to compile TypeScript that is using, for example, DOM elements and stuff like that. This means document.getElement by ID and all the DOM API. So this is really useful. It also, if you're wanting to use newer features that are coming in ECMAScript 2020 and stuff like that, so you can find them here as well. Maybe we are going to actually include some of this stuff, but we'll see. Another thing that it's useful is the types. So whenever, for example, you're using Node, if you want to have type definition files for Node, what you have to do is quickly just run yarn add types.node, and whenever this get installed, you can just type node here, and you're going to have type definitions for the node API, which is like, for example, fs read file and everything that's inside the node. So these are something that is very used a lot. But the other options are a little bit more complex. I mean, not complex, but I don't know. I mean, I haven't used all of them. Actually, we're going to use these two in the next few examples, which are the emit decorators, experimental decorators. Just experimental is because they're still under review how they're going to be put inside the ECMAScript standard. So this is why they're experimental. So that means that the API can change. And this is the emit decorator metadata that we're going to be using with this library called reflect metadata. And this is actually really useful whenever you're wanting to do certain stuff based on the annotations of the things. We're going to see it a little bit later. But yeah, the other types are the other configurations are pretty, I don't know. They're cool, but you have all the comments. So, I mean, whenever you need something, you just need to come here and just check the text and just see what you need, actually. I mean, I don't know all of them. Harry, do you have any like other cool ones that you want to say? I mean,
Absolutely yes. We have the always strict flag that we can set through, which is like very useful. I mean, like the whole TypeScript thing, and if you extend it to the TS-lint configs and stuff, you can get a very powerful tool set to enforce people to do things right. So, for example, if you combine TypeScript with TS-lint, which is off topic, totally off topic, you can like say that every function must return stuff. Like you are not able to use var, you must use always letter constant, stuff like this. And if you scale it up, like let's say you're like working with hundreds of people on one single, let's say, mon repository or like 5 repositories, TypeScript gives you the tooling that with which you can enforce people to do things right, which is pretty amazing. I mean, like, I've faced some of the issues that are like enforce people to do stuff, and if it's not automated, people aren't doing stuff. So if you have this powerful tooling, like let's say always use strict and stuff, you're like winning the battle in like code quality and let's say, yeah, code quality.
Yeah, mainly that.
Which is pretty useful. I mean, like just keep it like a fun, guys. You know, I mean, the guys that are watching us right now, this is really powerful. I mean, like when things are scaling like 10 people and above, this stuff like can save your life or your production code.
Yep, I agree. There is one other single rule that we have as well, but you cannot put it here. And this is like whenever you have like a type and you never put the any. Yeah. Just because this is valid and the strict won't, I mean, the strict is happy, but we're not happy as developers because, okay, any, come on, you can do better than that. So in certain cases, you must put any, I mean, or at least you just want to be fast and just put any. But most of the time, I always say that whenever I see this thing, not good. You have to do better. So yeah. Okay, are you guys ready to continue with the decorator stuff? It's really fun.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's create a
What's a decorator?
A decorator is a function, Harry.
Full stop.
It's correct, right? It's just a function.
Yeah. It's basically
the difference is that this function gets called just before the actual thing that you're applying it to is defined. So this provides you a way of modifying, like just modifying the thing or just attaching some metadata to it and just doing a bunch of stuff. So what we currently are going to be doing is modifying this class, and instead of just doing this, our decorator is going to be extending the HTML element, and it's going to be also defining the custom element. So yeah, let's see. I mean, I think it's the best way to understand something is by viewing how it works. So I'm just going to quickly start writing this decorator. I'm just wondering where I should put it. Maybe I'll put it here for now. Probably it's going to be a good idea to start separating our code, but for now I think it's fine. So I'm going to use a very familiar syntax to all of the people who are writing Angular. I'm just going to say that this function is going to be called component. And this component is going to be taking a few things. First, the selector. Maybe we can do it as an object, selector, and the template function. So this is going to be our constructor function. It's actually going to be creating the decorator. Oh, here we have to actually say a few stuff. That's the selector. There is from type string, and the template function, who knows what that type is? I have no idea, but I'm going to quickly come here and just copy and paste it like that. Okay. And here we don't have to have the uproot, so let's say something like that. Generic from T, and he's going to have T, and we have to import this thing here. Okay, fine. That looks good. So here we're actually going to return the actual decorator. I'm just going to call it component decorator, like that. And usually the decorators, if you go to the TypeScript documentation, you're going to see it's pretty well explained what they are, how you can use them, and where you can apply them. So they can be applied as you can apply decorators to parameters of like classes. You also can apply them to parameters of functions, like the constructor, and you can apply them to classes. So we're actually going to use the class decorator here. And one other thing, depending on where you apply them, you actually get different types of values here inside this function. So whenever we actually apply them to a class, we only need one thing, and this is called the target. And this target is going to be, I'm just going to put it any for now, just because inside the decorators, we actually don't need so much type completion, just because we're going to be doing some hacky stuff. And we don't actually, we want to be messy a little bit. We don't want to count on TypeScript so much. So here I'm going to say class CMP extends HTML element. And here inside the HTML element, what I'm going to do is say constructor, and I'm going to say super, so we can call the super method. And actually, I'm going to even go a little bit further and even remove this update here that we have and just put it there, because we always need this function, right, that updates the values. So I'm just quickly going to do like this, copy, and just paste it inside here. And also what I'm going to remove from here is this thing where we're actually attaching our shadow root to the component. So it's going to happen here. We're going to say root. And maybe this update function, I'm going to quickly put it like this and say that we're going to have this variable called update schedule equals false. And const like that. Actually, let. Okay. And yeah, here we're going to have a problem just because this thing accepts. Why does it accept uproot? Okay. This is something. This is the root template. Of course, it's going to accept uproot. So this is something that we have to say that maybe just do as any here, just because but this, oh no, this is going to be this function. So we don't need actually the as any. We have to say template function like that. Everything is going to be fine. And we're also going to use the selector, and we're going to use it here after this class. I'm going to say custom elements.define the selector and this class that we actually created. So what is going to happen is that whenever we apply this decorator to our class like that, component, we're going to say, okay, I want my selector to be hgroot. And the other thing is going to be our template function, which is going to be root template. And currently what we're going to, template result is not assignable type of template. Something's wrong with the type here. Okay, let's say something like any, or maybe we should apply this T to the whole component thing. Let's see. Okay, yeah. So now it knows it's going to be uproot. Okay. Yeah, so currently what's going to happen is that this decorator is actually going to run. And what it will do is create this component here. And this is going to be actually the okay, it's not sign of the parameter of T. Okay, st or as any. Just quickly. I just want to. I'm just wondering if there is like a better way to do this actually, but I think it's okay like that for now. I mean, as I said, inside the decorator we don't need so much TypeScript. We're going to be doing some hacky stuff. Even though, why is it complaining? I really don't understand. It says that this is not assignable to parameter. This is assignable to. Okay. This is just because it doesn't understand what T is. So, okay, I'm just going to say as any for now because I want to finish the decorator. So we're constructing this, and we're actually giving this to the custom elements. But one part that we're actually missing is getting all the things from the actual target, which is this class that we actually have here. And we're going to remove this. So what I'm currently going to do is going to get everything from this object and apply it to the actual class that I'm creating here. And I'm also going to get everything from the prototype of this class and just attach it to this prototype here from the component that we currently have. So first thing first, let's get the target. This is going to be our class and say call, very old school, and say this. So this is going to call the target constructor, which is going to be this actual class, the uproot. And inside the constructor, it's going to do everything necessary. So it's going to execute this code. We actually don't need this here. We only need this. But since this class doesn't know that we have an update, we maybe should mention it like that. And later we're going to even remove this update here. So we're going to actually be, we can actually remove it from here, right? The only part that we cannot remove it is up there. So we define an update here and say this dot update like that here. And everything looks okay. We're going to remove this. And the next part that we have to do is get all these functions or methods that we have, like the connected callback, and attach it to the prototype of this thing. So what I'm going to do is say const. I'm going to use a little bit of the structuring here. What I want to do is get object dot get own property descriptors from the target. And I want to remove this thing called constructor because I really don't want it. And I'm going to get all the other stuff like that. And what I'm going to do here is say object.define properties, yes. And I'm going to say cmp.prototype. And what else I have to put is others, right? Yeah, like that. So currently I got everything that is attached to my prototype of the uproot class and just attached it to the real component that we're actually going to be using. And yeah, let's see what's going to happen. We don't have any errors, so let's see if this thing is still working. No, we actually are getting an error. I think that we have to restart our server just because I made some configurations to the TypeScript config and they didn't get applied. So let's see. We have an error. Failed to execute defined. It's already. Oops. This sometimes maybe I didn't remove it here. Yeah. Okay. Actually, whenever like you're restarting, sometimes this happens. I'm not sure why, but currently we don't have any problems. As you see, almost everything is working correctly. Yeah, almost everything. Just because here it's actually not updating the real value. So this is something that we have to change now. But as you see, we don't have any problems constructing the components. We have just a few stuff that we have to do. Okay, let's see why this is not working. What happens is probably this thing here. Oh, is it called updates? Yeah. Okay, let's see here. I think this is breaking the thing. Set input value, or we had what did we had here? On change, where is the input key up handler? This is the function we actually need. Okay, let's search it inside the index.ts and see what's happening. Okay. Oh, it's not being handled at all. So this thing is missing for some reason. Okay, let's go and find out why. Let's create a few stuff here and here. Okay. So here, what do we have? What are others? Let's examine it inside the console. So what we have is length, name, target prototype, not the target itself. The target itself is actually the function, so no wonder why I'm getting these values. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Perfect. So let's see now. Oops, it started to work. And it's working. Perfect. That's cool, right? We have to remove this debugger, but everything was working fine. Anything you guys want to add?
Absolutely. I mean, like for the people that never use decorators, like imagine that you can like save with this example 20 lines of code each time you're creating a component or something. So it's also a very powerful concept, you know, like kind of the things that are meta programming and stuff. And I have a question: can we compose those decorators? Like, let's say, have like 5 decorators that are defining our component, or
yes, you can compose decorators, and yeah, you can do all kinds of stuff. I mean, the really important thing is it really depends, because currently I'm not even like returning something different here. I'm just creating a component based on what I receive. And whenever you're composing decorators, you have to be careful as like whenever you're composing functions, which decorator comes after each. Like, I mean, the composition is important. Because if you're doing something that one decorator expects from the other, if you don't put them in the correct order, you might get an error. So yeah, you can actually compose it. Yeah. Okay.
But either way, a very powerful concept.
Exactly. Yeah, it's really powerful. But one other thing that I want to do is I really want to get rid of this update here and create another decorator that we can use called, for example, detect changes or something like that. And we can apply it to, for example, properties or functions that are changing our state. And this is something that will actually automatically be calling the update function instead of us explicitly calling it. Do you want to do that, or? I mean, yeah, okay. Harry says that we can do it. So, okay, let's start really simple. The first thing that I want to do is get rid of this like setter here, and I want to be able to just create this property called title input value. And whenever this value changes, I want to update the thing. Okay, so let's say we're going to have a function called detect changes. And this detect changes is actually going to have a few more arguments just because we're going to be applying it to this thing. So let's quickly see how this is going to work. We're going to say detect changes. And I'm just going to say this thing here that is going to be a string. Or even I'm just going to say it to the default value. This is how our decorator will look. So what the decorator will actually going to get, the first thing, as I said, is a target. And now the second one is going to be the key. This is going to be the string property called title input value. So I'm going to say here any, here I'm going to say string. And what I'm going to do is say something like object.define property. I'm going to say the object is going to be my target, and the value is actually going to be my key. And here I'm going to say I want to have a setter. Inside this setter, what I'm going to be doing is maybe say, how should we do this? Let's say let val. I'm going to be a type of any, and inside the setter, we're actually going to get the new value and say val equals new value. And here I'm going to say this dot, and now is the tricky part because we actually don't know that we have the update function. So what we have to do is say something like if this dot underscore update, this underscore update. And inside the getter, we're going to say return value, and I'm missing a comma here. And I think that this is everything that we have to do. Duplicate identifier, yeah, I'm going to remove this part, also this part as well, and remove these things here. And you can see how much less code we have to be doing here. Let's see if it's going to work. Did I forget something? Okay, let's see if it's going to work. This is the title input value.
Yeah.
It's working, perfect. As you see, this button gets enabled. So I currently saved a bunch of code inside my components. This is really cool. But now I want to be able to do this as well, just because here I'm explicitly, actually, how is this working since I'm not calling the update?
It's not here.
Oh, no, this is the other part. Yeah, this is actually, this, I want to start using this as well. Whenever I click, I want to be, to get updated as well. So what we have to do is be able to apply these detect changes on the function as well. So with the functions or the methods, it's a little bit more complex just because you have this extra argument here called descriptor. And I think the type was like typed property descriptor from like, what's like any, I don't know. And here we have to do a few cases. So whenever you're applying it to a property, you're going to always have these values. And whenever you have the descriptor, it means that you're applying them, applying the decorator to a method. So what we're going to do is say if descriptor, I want to do this, else I want to be doing this thing on the bottom. And what I think the descriptor, how was it like? Consts. I think that we have to get the current function, current method. It's going to be the descriptor, descriptor.value, yes. And here I'm going to say descriptor. This is a little monkey patching. It's going to be a custom function. This function is going to get all the arguments past this method. We don't care about that thing so much, so we're going to say any. And we're going to quickly say current method with all the arguments that we received, like that, and say this dot, or even like copy this line here. So if this update exists, I want to just call it. So here,
just to point out that Harry seems to have dropped out, and I'm not sure if he has requested to come back or something like this.
Well, he has the link, so he can join anytime. I think that his internet connection is
My
bad.
point is that I was thinking that because he can rejoin, but you have to manually re-add him into the stream.
No, I don't have to manually add him. I mean, he can just join.
Backstage. If he's backstage, you have to.
Oh, yeah, I know, but I can't see him currently.
Yeah, my question if he's there.
No,
okay. So I guess
he's not here.
It's stronger. Yeah, stronger. It's more serious.
Yep.
Okay, sorry for the.
No problem. So what we have to do here is maybe say, so one other really cool thing about TypeScript is that whenever you have a function like that, you can define the this of the function, and you do this by saying this any, which means that the this will currently be any kind. And instead of just doing this with brackets any, I can just do this really quickly. So for example, if it was another function, we could just say that if it was another type, we could just say that it's going to be I2do. And here, if I say this dot, I'm going to see that it has title uncompleted. So maybe we should create an interface for our decorator, like it has the update method and stuff, but I think that currently it's fine this way as well.
Next step to improve the whole process.
Yeah. Okay, so let's see if everything is going to start working correctly. Detect changes, able to resolve. Oh, sorry, this is something that we have to do. So whenever we're creating decorators, sometimes if you get this error, you have to say that they're not returning anything explicitly. Or maybe any. Oh, wait, I have to say that I want to return the actual descriptor. This is actually going to be changing the value. So, yeah.
It's still complaining, though.
Yeah, it's still complaining. It says that unable to resolve signature when called an expression.
Maybe that it doesn't have the descriptor property?
Oh, wait.
Yeah.
This is the descriptor. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so I think we're done. Let's see if things are going to start working. We have the decorator there, so we are adding stuff. And yeah, perfect. So whenever we have like stuff that we want to get changed, we currently can also use this decorator that we currently developed. It's called detect changes. So yeah, really cool. I think that it's really cool. Okay, so how much time do we have? Oh, we have a bunch of time actually. I mean, we have 20 minutes. So that's really good. We can actually have time to have a quick review of the reflect metadata library if you want. But guys, any comments, anything that you want us to do more? I don't know.
This looks pretty powerful. Like the logical next step to the whole thing is to add, like you said, the interfaces, so that we're not using any, and we can have an interface for our decorator. But this
is not very necessary. As I said, decorators are meant to be used for internals only. So this is something that we can just separate it from our code. I mean that the most important thing is going to be our application and the data that we're working with. Here inside the decorator, we're kind of like doing some hacky stuff. So it's not so important to have strict types and stuff, but it might be. It really depends on how huge your application is going to be. But yeah, I mean, maybe, I mean, but come on, interfaces, let's do something more interesting. I mean, I think that everybody can do the interfaces by themselves, right?
No, actually, the part to use any decorators and whatever, it's like, this is the powerful stuff. You're writing the TypeScript, but whenever you need to write some JavaScript, like hardcore JavaScript and do the hack stuff, you have the ability to do that in like a few lines, and it just works. And I just want to mention something, because probably most of the probably just me, I think like we are looking at stuff that runs in the browser, but actually all that stuff can run on your server, in your node server, like, like you can do that also for the backend with the decorator stuff and all that crazy cool TypeScript stuff. So just think about how much code you can like cut out if you're like using these patterns. So really powerful.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you can run it everywhere, and with using decorators and everything, you can do magic. I actually very long ago, I started doing something like they currently have called Nest.js, that is using like Angular concepts inside on the server. So it's kind of like replacing Express. And yeah, these were like my first experiment with decorators and reflect metadata and everything. And I actually wanted to be able to build this library, but I never had the chance. And like 10 years later, this is Nest.js. Come on. I mean, not 10 years, but at least, I don't know, 5, 6 years ago. No, or maybe, no, it's less, maybe 3 or 4 years ago. Anyways, doesn't matter.
Enough years ago.
Yeah, enough years ago. I could have done this library, but anyways. Okay, I just quickly created actually the interface because it's very simple. Let's apply it here. Let's say that this class here, the component that we're creating, also implements, or maybe implements a slide here, implements component. Should we put the, should be on the back, okay. Okay, and yeah, okay, here we're going to say they does not exist on this thing. Okay, I think that it's okay like that. And what else we have to do is inside here, whenever we said that the this is any, just because this is really cool whenever you're using it like that, we can say that this is going to be an I component. So whenever we actually do dot, we can see that we have the update. So this is really cool. This is not actual arguments. This is something that you have to remember. Whenever you're using TypeScript, if you write this with some annotation, this means that the this of the function is going to be this type, and it's not going to be an actual argument. So it's kind of tricky sometimes to understand it, but yeah. Okay, so let's quickly review what reflect metadata does and how we can use it and how probably we are going to use it in the future. And I guess like talk about some picks and like some interesting stuff that we or you guys have. And it's very sad that we don't have any comments this time, like on the live stream.
Yeah.
But yeah, if someone is like having questions, you can poll them online, and we can answer them. Oh, I'm using that. Okay. So let's start with reflect metadata. So let's install it. I'm going to say on add metadata. Oops. I have to remove this thing. And the next thing that we have to do is quickly import it inside our project. So I'm going to come here and say import. And I'm going to say reflect metadata like that, which will automatically create, give me this reflect global object that we can use. And how is this useful? I'm just going to quickly show you how you can get some metadata from your component, for example. By using here in the class, I'm going to say that we're going to have a private test that is going to be a number, and it's going to be optional as well. So this is something that we'll be using in the future. We can create, for example, a dependency injection based on this reflect metadata. And this is something that actually Angular is using to discover what kind of dependencies certain component has. But this is only in just-in-time mode, meaning that if you're doing ahead-of-time compilation, they're doing this inside the compilation step, so you don't have the reflect metadata included though, which sounds logical, since you don't want to have extra operations done in just-in-time. So yeah, but currently, since we are not using Angular and we don't have any compilation, or at least not yet, there's no problem using the reflect metadata like that. So what we can do is, for example, come here inside the decorator. Inside the decorator, we can do something like, let's say, console.log, console, not
Yeah.
console.log, and say reflect. Oops. Reflect dot get metadata, and here I think the key was design keys. No, it wasn't design keys, it was parameter types. And what we can do is provide the targets. Okay, let's see what we are going to get in the browser. It's undefined param types. Param types. Yeah. So here, if you notice on the bottom, we actually got this like really small thing. I'm just going to zoom it so everybody can see it. This is actually the arguments that our component accepts, and it says that the first argument is actually a number. So we know what kind of thing that we want to be getting. I mean, whenever we are constructing the component, we'll be able to know what kind of thing this constructor needs, like accepts its arguments, and depending on this, we can, for example, provide a number or provide a string or instantiate a service and just give it to the component and stuff like that. So this is where reflect metadata is super useful. And yeah, guys, you like it? You don't like it?
I'm not sure.
So metaprogramming, it's always fun.
Yeah, it's fun, but I mean, like, let's say that most of the people that are like doing programming and they're like on mid-scale projects or even smaller projects, should the people like the casual developer go to the metaprogramming stuff and decorators and all that crazy mambo jumbo, which in a big project saves you like thousands of lines of code, and actually if you're doing something small, maybe it's not your thing. I mean, like, can you like give us your opinion about when we should dive in reflect metadata, decorators, and all that cool stuff?
I think
so,
you do have a point about that. It's not for a small scale project. It's not that the whole boilerplate around decorators when it's a small project is not that necessary. But if you have a worked out way in which you build your projects every time, you have a structure which you follow in the certain guidelines that you follow. Yeah, that you follow. When you create and you take a deep dive and you create your the decorators, you can reuse them in your other projects. You can create them for one small project, and if you have the whole guidelines, the way you work set up, you can reuse it in other projects.
I think
right, but what's your rule of thumb? Like, I mean, like, you know, the rule of thumb, like, let's say if you have 5 files in your directory, you create index.js or TS that exports everything, for example. So what is the rule of thumb? Like, let's do our decorators that are going to be shared all across everything. I mean, like, that's what I'm kind of trying to figure out.
I thought that Harry is asking mostly about the metadata library. I mean, decorators, you can see that they're very useful just because you're writing less code. So I think that usually the regular developer, I mean, I'm not sure that they'll even jump into writing their own decorators. I mean, usually people maybe are not so familiar with how to write them and stuff like that. But I would definitely do something like that just because it's really cool and I have more control of everything. And one other thing about the reflect metadata, a regular developer should not probably use ever reflect metadata by himself. The cool part is that by using decorators and using reflect metadata, you have a whole other universe of developing your application. This means that whenever you have like very common functionality for certain components, you can actually extract them. And depending on the dependencies that they have, you can like do certain things that usually you have to write them inside your code, for example. and you have like a whole other universe of developing your application, just doing like connections between the components, and depending on the things that they use, the arguments to be doing something. So it's really powerful. Like pretty much, I think that normal people, like normal developers, they won't even like imagine how much power this gives you. Harry's like not he's not happy at all with my answer.
No, I'm pretty happy. I mean, like because for the regular Joe, as is the term, like it's like totally mumbo jumbo. But with the things that we're doing, like in our projects, and when you have problem and you see the solution, like let's say I reflect metadata just to share some state across, let's say some forms or stuff or whatever, it's like the panacea of everything. But when you don't face the problems, like you're like totally walked like from why should I use reflect metadata when I don't need it? I mean, like, and I think that it's pretty important for the people that are developing stuff that like do the border, like, all right, if I'm doing like just a landing page, I don't need to reflect metadata. But at some point, yeah, I mean, there are a lot of people that are like, all right, I'm doing a landing page and I must put the backend through the Nginx and all that stuff, and also the front end should be like totally lazy loaded, and hold the front end is like less than like 20K. I mean, like
yeah,
people are like diving in the deep at points that they shouldn't, and also people are like don't discover the useful stuff like decorators and the metadata and everything when they're doing something huge. And it's really like mind-blowing with what kind of issues people are tackling in their day-to-day job. And like let's say the decorators are like the panacea for someone that's like every day is typing like, all right, let's implement my update in each component because we are having like custom library to build our like web casino games, because I have a lot of friends that are developers and they're like, all right, today I'm building a game. Let's start my game class, and we have the update method, and we can extend, put that just in a decorator, and it works. So pretty powerful.
Yeah. Very powerful. I can like I haven't like shown you the whole functionality of Reflect. Of course, I mean with Reflect you have also you can get metadata, but you also can set metadata and stuff like that. That means that you can like use your custom decorators, and inside that these decorators you can put certain types of data that the application is going to be using somewhere else and stuff like that. So for example, I don't know if you have like let's say you have different components for example, let's say certain nodes, you can decorate them with different decorators, and then whenever you're providing these nodes to another component, for example, you can using reflect metadata extract all the metadata that you put there and just do certain stuff depending on this like data. So I mean meta programming, come on, it's really useful. So hopefully it's going to get more into JavaScript, because I mean it's hard to like use this kind of stuff in JavaScript just because we don't have types. I mean types in the terms of TypeScript now. So reflect metadata is not very useful with JavaScript itself, or it might be actually, because you actually can put your own stuff there. So it's not necessary, I think, to use it with TypeScript. The only thing that with TypeScript is this thing that we actually put here inside the TS config that says emit decorator metadata, which means that the metadata for the decorator is going to be emitted, and we can actually use it inside the reflect metadata. But you can use it with normal JavaScript as well if you want to be providing some metadata for your I don't know, classes, whatever. I mean, it's just a global object and it just stores. stuff depending on the target. So I think that you can actually write a library like this one by yourself.
And we're back at the moment that actually TypeScript is just JavaScript. I mean, like you can include whatever kind of JavaScript, right? Whatever kind of JavaScript you feel like, and use it in your TypeScript projects, which is like really powerful, and people should understand that concept that TypeScript is not another language, it's just JavaScript.
Exactly for JavaScript.
Okay, so we have like 5 minutes. Do you guys have any picks or?
Aleksander?
I'm
thinking about like I had the first thing that comes to mind, and that it's not exactly a pick, but it's something that it was an issue that had my head spinning, that these forms that we were making, and it's something really, really trivial, but for some reason I made the mistake more than once and spent some time figuring it out. So if you have a form and you have a field, which is, I'm talking in terms of Angular, and the given field is required, and you disable that field, nothing will work. And they did.
No,
because
I mean everything will work, but just the form will be invalid.
Yeah. If the whole thing working is dependent on the form being valid, then it won't work, because the way that it works is when it's disabled, the whole property gets removed from the value of the form, and when it's required, it's
And this is in terms of reactive forms, by the way. I'm not sure that in template-driven forms it's like that, but yeah.
We have to test that out, because it makes sense for it to work to be the same there too. It works. It functions the same way, and yeah, that's a really, really trivial when you think about it, really obvious thing, but I missed it. So we can keep it in mind if something if things stop working.
Probably you're not the only one that had that help, because it's like, what the fuck, why?
No, it's really obvious that shouldn't work when you realize it, but the whole part of realizing
it,
yeah.
And I have 2 picks. So one is because the past week we've been talking about in our work at Hugh Grant, HostGator, or whatever, we were talking about some issues that are related to, let's say, sharing your code. Because right now we have to do an iframe. I'm not involved in this project, but we talked with, let's say, with Aleksander and Iliya about that we must share some code with our iframe, and I think that was like mind-blowing. We are talking again in the context of Angular. It's like Ivy is coming, and when you are having like similar projects, you can share whole of your store, like the NGRX thing, and build separate projects, and whatever isn't needed will be like just be shaken off. So the thing that I'm talking about is like, imagine that you have like one huge store with everything that's needed for your application, and you need to create, let's say, a mobile app with native script or whatever. You can just inject that store inside your native script app, and whatever isn't used will be shaken off, and you have the whole functionality of your store, which it's already there. And the other thing that I want to pick is like, guys, when you're building projects, think about aliases. I mean, like, it's a really simple concept. Like, instead of .. slash .. slash .. whatever, you can do like my module name slash, let's say, components or whatever, and you can do that in for your back end. Like, you can import your controllers with just controllers slash, let's say, user or whatever, and it's also pretty powerful thing, because like, you're not thinking about in which folder I am. You can just use an Alex, and those are my 2 picks.
That's really useful. The whole the thing with the aliases.
Okay, so my pick, I really, because this week I was playing a lot with TypeScript and stuff. I really want to talk about the infer types that are really
I
cool.
was going to mention that, but we decided to leave it to you.
Yeah. So infer types are really cool, and I'm just going to quickly just show an example. For example, how you can get, for example, the types of the arguments of a function. So what you can do is create, for example, a type, and this type is going to say get function args. And here is the tricky part. So you're going to say that this type is going to have a generic, and here you're going to say, okay, it will equal this t, the generic, that will extend a function. So you write the function like args, like this. So you get all the args, and here you can say infer u, and you have to say the function is also going to return an any. So if the u exists, you want to return the u. If it doesn't exist, you'll just return, for example, never. And now, if you have, like, for example, a function that gets, for example, like a number that's type number, and so str that is of type string. If you want to get like these arguments of this function, let's say tests, let's say we're going to have some type test or something, and you want to get these arguments, you can just do like that, and you can say type of test. And bam, you have all the arguments, which is something, whoa, like what's going on?
Black magic.
This is really cool. I mean, this week I've been playing so much with this. We're kind of doing optimizations of our projects and stuff, and we really want to have this layer before NGRX. So we're using a lot of factory functions, and we want to be able to do things really quickly, but just by calling a few functions inside a module. And I'm really playing with these infer types, and it just can blow your mind.
Yeah.
I was like,
the first time you showed it to me, I was like, what was happening here?
I actually didn't.
I'm still like that.
Yeah, I still am, but nothing beats the first mind blow.
They're not something new. They're not something new.
Course.
This is what's interesting, that they're not something new, and they've been around for a while, and you can find them here inside the advanced types. So here inside the advanced types, if you go somewhere down, you can actually see some examples with infer keywords. Infer, there it is. So this is how, for example, the return type works. It says the return type, you extend the function, but instead of like inferring the arguments, you say, I'm going to infer the return type. And if it exists, I mean, I'm just going to say R, if not just any. So yeah, this is really cool.
Yeah, this is
so yeah, guys, this is really cool. So if you're using TypeScript, I suggest that you look into that.
Yeah, but I think it's for the basic user, if he hasn't run into the issues that we run into, they'll be like, why should I use this? And I think did you mention that the main reason for this, why we're using this, is factory functions, so that complex factory functions, multi-layered factory functions, and such.
Yeah, I mentioned it, but anyways, I mean, I think that at a certain type you might want to like use, for example, return type, or just do something with infer. I mean, even if you're just developing a simple application, at a certain point you might want to get the type, for example, of all the arguments of a function, and this is something that you can do by using this.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I just wanted to put out our use case.
Yep, it should be args, right? Not ours.
Really cool.
Yeah, so anyways, I think that we're done for today. Next time will be next Saturday. Harry probably won't be able to join us. I don't know. We'll see. But if he can't join us, then it will be me and Aleksander. We actually invited Georgi today, but he didn't join. Probably he's busy. So next time, maybe he can come and join us. I don't know. I don't know. What are we going to be talking about? Probably just I don't know. We can actually either do something with reflect metadata, or we can maybe extend our application so it's a little bit larger. I don't know. Maybe after we finish the stream, we're going to think about what we are actually going to do, and then just post it as an event on our YouTube channel. Yeah, please subscribe. We're still I think we have. Yeah, I mean,
the mumbo jumbo.
Yeah, we have 21 followers on YouTube, but we are trying to reach 100 so we can have our unique ID. So yeah, we'll be very happy if you subscribe.
Yeah,
and yeah, you can follow the event there for next time and the future times. And also on Facebook, we have a commit.js page and a group. The group is pretty empty and we don't have anything going on there yet, but at a certain point, we're going to start using it as well. So yeah, if you like, you can join. Okay, guys.
By the way, call for speakers. If you have the amazing idea that you never shared and you want to have a tribune to share it, join us. We'll ask you friendly questions about your idea and stuff. You can white code stuff, and yeah, just reach out to us and you can join us. Yeah.
Harry, you're promoting our show like we have 1 million viewers. I mean, I think that the most beneficial thing from someone coming to, for example, presenting something with us is that we're going to have a nice conversation about it and just try to. It will be definitely interesting.
Yeah, that's what I'm aiming for. More people to join us and have our morning coffee, talk about JavaScript and what excites us. I think that's the idea.
So much coding, I forgot to drink my coffee.
I'm still struggling with mine.
Okay, guys. Well, see you next time, and bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.